I'm Kerry Shale.
And I'm Daniel Crespin.
And this is Bob Dylan.
Approximately.
Well, the last thing I remembered before I stripped and kneeled was a trainload of fools bogged down in a magnetic field. A gypsy with a broken flag and a flashing ring. He said, "Son, this ain't a dream no more. It's the real thing."
Scary shit, Bob.
It's a really scary song in some ways. I think it's one of those really... I think all Bob songs are mysterious. You can never fully get and you'll never get an answer from him. But this is one of the most mysterious because it's a narrator asking a question to Señor, whoever Señor is, and never getting a single answer throughout the whole song. So who is Señor? Why is the narrator so clueless and deferent to him? We never get a single answer. It feels, I was saying to you before, I get images in my head for each Bob song almost. And this, to me, it's a desert scene. It's like he's being dragged with his hands bound through the desert.
Right, so you mean it's Christ being
absolutely.
in the desert.
It does. It feels, as with many Bob songs, actually, there does feel like a biblical element to it. It feels to me like Christ being dragged to crucifixion. There's something almost martyrish about the narrator character, stripped and kneeled. It's that sort of human-like element of Christ during the crucifixion. Father, why have you forsaken me? It's Christ suddenly becomes human a little bit.
Well, I think Bob was beginning to identify with Christ in a big way. As we know, it's 1978.
It's an interesting time. And you were saying about it's the time sort of the divorce.
It's the time of the divorce. Yeah, and I think he feels that he was being stripped. I mean, it was apparently a really brutal divorce situation, which went on for a long time, mostly about custody, but also clearly about money and non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah,
and he had to go up against Marvin Mitchelson, who was Sarah's lawyer, who at the time was the biggest shark in a pool of sharks. Like, he was the guy who invented the phrase palimony. That's when Lee Marvin's live-in girlfriend, they'd been together for like a decade, she hired Mitchelson and said that even though they weren't married, she still wanted a big cut of his earnings during that period. Okay. And she was his pal. She wasn't his wife.
Palimony,
so
right.
Hence
that makes
palimony.
Sense. Yeah.
Anyway, Marvin Mitchelson was just known as this shark. And I mean, it's psychologically, divorce, especially with 5 kids, is unbelievably brutal. It must feel like you're being dragged through the desert. Yeah,
and there's a female character that gets mentioned in this song, and there's definite revenge in this song. And also, it's interesting around the time, because this is from Street Legal, in my opinion, one of Dylan's most underrated albums. But the tour for this album was colloquially known as the Alimony Tour.
Yeah,
he did this huge world tour.
Yeah,
and was having to pay off, so much money to Sarah. But it's interesting, it says so. There's elements of the Lincoln County War, and I had a look into this. So can you tell me where we're heading, Lincoln County Road or Armageddon? The Lincoln County War was an Old West conflict in Lincoln County, New Mexico, and it became famous because of the participation of Billy the Kid. So you've got these kind of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid elements, and the film is essentially a fictionalized version of that war. And
the Lincoln County Road, he says, or Armageddon.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the end of the world
that
he's talking about.
Yeah.
The end of his world, the end of his marriage. I mean, I still have to think that that's what it is. Seems like I've been down this way before. Like,
it's eerie, isn't it?
To me, it's like women. There's a lot of distrust. She's not there. Where is she hiding?
Yeah.
She's hiding behind a lawyer. Again, this is just in my head because you can never say anything is definitive with Bob. But the more I looked at it, how long must I keep my eyes glued to the door?
Yeah, who's coming
through? Is it her? Is it a killer? Like, as in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, or is it her lawyer?
Yeah.
Is there going to be another fucking subpoena or whatever they do during these huge, multi-million-dollar divorce settlements.
Yeah. And there's something about the battle between good and evil for me, as there is in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. It's sort of like neither of them are... They're both gunslingers. They're both out for revenge. It's like, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy? You can't really answer in that film. And there's something about the narrator in this. I think he's sometimes pitiable. He's sometimes Christ-like. Other times he's bitter and out for revenge. And... yeah, and the Lincoln County War was marked for its revenge killings, apparently. That's what made it really famous. So super revengeful. It almost, as I say, that being dragged through the desert thing, it almost reminds me of the bit in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly where Clint Eastwood's character is being dragged out into the desert and he's not allowed to drink water. Do you remember that bit? I that sprang to mind when I was...
Yeah, to me, the album itself, Street Legal, is it's an album I've never quite taken to, although I've listened to it a lot more just recently, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the lyrics a lot more, and I appreciate it as a there's some great music in it, but there is something deeply creepy about it as compared to some of his other dark stuff. Like I've been listening to Red River Shore because I know we're going to cover it later on, and it's extremely dark, but it's romantic and it's deeply sad, and it's not creepy to me at all. Where and songs like Dignity are again really dark, but they're jaunty in their darkness. Whereas this is kind of truly dark. This is one of his darkest albums, and this song is one of the darkest on the album. One of the darkest and one of the most mysterious. I don't think you can ever get an answer about what this is definitively about. I think for me as a fan, it's about so many different things. I almost think because it's around the time on this tour, he found Jesus in an Arizona hotel room, and there's almost something about is the narrator, is Señor God to me? It does seem almost like a relationship with God. It's like, he says, I'm ready when you are, Señor. Can you tell me what we're waiting for? Is there any truth in that, Señor? It's answers that never come. They never get answered throughout the whole thing. And is God deliberately not answering because there is no God, or is it because the narrator is showing an over-reliance on God or needs to find his own way? It's these unanswerable questions that it seems around the divorce that Dylan was really questioning, and maybe that's why he sort of was at his lowest ebb. And there was one time when I listened to it, and I actually thought there was something in it about suicide, because this place don't make sense to me no more is just so despairing. And I got to pick myself up off the floor. He's on the floor. I don't know what do you have any theories about what the upper deck is? There's a wicked wind still blowing on that upper deck. Is it the Titanic?
Well,
I don't know what the hell it is.
I should have looked into this more, but there was some stuff I did in my research that it was. Is it the Samuel Taylor Coleridge poem? Is it The Rise of the Ancient Mariner? There's apparently sort of similarity.
The rhyme.
That's it. The rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. There's so the iron cross still hanging down from around her neck is apparently another thing to that. I should have looked into that.
I looked at something that compared it to the albatross, which is in the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Hanging around the neck.
Yeah. Something that we haven't yet discussed, as this is probably our first episode to go out, is who the hell are you, Dan Crespin? And how
Where
the
was
hell
I when I listened to Street Legal?
Exactly. Exactly. In that it came out way before you were on the earth, this place.
16 years before I was born.
Yeah. So how do you relate to this and to Bob Dylan in general?
So Bob Dylan came into my life. I was a real folkie growing up. So I just remember Freewheelin'. I was obsessed with. That was the album. I think the first year, that's pretty much all I listened to. And then from there...
So how old were you then?
17, something like that. Became absolutely obsessed with it. And I remember at drama school, I went to LAMDA, and we had to do our dialect coach. Every time we did a new dialect, we had to do a presentation about that culture or whatever. And when I did the American dialect, I choose anything from America. I did Bob Dylan. And I remember having great delight doing this presentation on Bob Dylan. But from there, I just went chronologically, and I just fell in love with Bob entirely. And at first it was just how a young man, 20, 21 when he was writing the songs in Freewheeling, he feels like an old sage already. And then further as I got on, I was going through heartbreak, and his way of approaching heartbreak is unlike any other songwriter to me. There's something he does in songs like Most of the Time and Don't Think Twice, where you can't trust the narrator. And it's really hard to do that in any literature. It's hard to do well. You think The Great Gatsby, Farewell to Arms, they're amazing books because you've got this unreliable narrator. And Bob does that so well with love. It's, you just kind of wasted my precious time. It's this sardonic sort of way. There's way more under the surface of heartbreak there than he's letting on. And most of the time, I think is one of the most truly heartbreaking breakup songs. It's almost like a breakup's happened years ago, and he's trying to convince himself that he's over it. I don't even think about it.
How did your contemporaries? So you're in drama school. You're all like 20.
Yeah.
How old were you?
So I got into drama school at 18. So I was a baby.
Okay. And how did your contemporaries react to your Bob session?
It's still. I don't know if you feel this. I still feel, even now, like I'm constantly apologising for being a Bob Dylan fan. And I've tried really to stop that. But you get looked at almost with contempt sometimes from people. It's like, oh, really? I'm like, why am I apologising for being a fan of this Nobel Prize winning, Oscar winning, he'd hate this, but voice of his generation, absolutely mythic figure.
Yeah.
The greatest songwriter of all time.
You will stop apologizing.
I will.
I'll hypnotize you to.
I have, but it is almost that funny. It's a joke within my friendship group. Oh, damn, talking about Bob Dylan.
Yeah,
again.
but I don't. I got some really good advice. Some of the best life advice ever that I took to heart when I first got here to the UK, which, funnily enough, was 1978. The same year as Street Legal came out. And I missed Street Legal entirely because my life was sort of turned upside down, by the move. Anyway, I found myself here unexpectedly. Like, I didn't come over to stay, but I got a job, which I auditioned for illegally and got the job, and then the papers were kind of worked out because I was living, I was working in Canada, in Vancouver at the time, but then, boom, I was living in London. And I still had I came over here to do a 5-week course at Central School. It was a kind of, not really an acting course, it was a thing where they bought you a bunch of tickets to shows, and then famous people came and talked to you for this 5-week thing. And I'd never been to Europe before. I'd never been to the UK, clearly, before. And that's what I came over to do. But anyway, I auditioned for this job, and I got it. But I still went to the course, because the job didn't start until after the course ended. So one of the things we saw was we went to see 12th Night at the Old Vic back then. It was the Prospect Company that was running it at the time. And the guy who played Sir Toby Belch had agreed to talk to the students afterwards. And everybody else who was taking this course wasn't a professional actor. I was the only professional actor on the course. I'd already graduated from drama school in Vancouver. So this guy's name was, I don't know if you remember him, John Savadent. He ended up being a regular on Coronation Street.
Oh, wow.
He was like on Coronation Street for 10, 15
My
years.
gran would know him for sure.
Yeah, he was very Toby Belch-like. He was quite a big man. He wasn't hugely fat, but he was a big man, had a big character. Slightly camp, really interesting guy. Great Toby Belch. So afterwards, we were doing the Q&A thing in the bar. Just the students and me and John Savadent, and he was lovely. He was, tell me about yourself, and tell me about yourself to everybody.
The old school British accent.
Yes. We
miss.
Yeah, we do.
We've still got Simon Russell Beale.
Yes, exactly. And he said, "What about you, boy?" And I kind of froze, and I kind of apologized. I was trying to get across the fact that I was actually a real professional actor, which I had trouble the first couple of years because I couldn't believe that I was getting paid money. Yeah, I still can't really believe it. So I kind of stuttered and everything, and I said, I'm actually an actor. And he looked at me and bellowed, and I'll really never forget this. Never apologize, boy. Wow. And And he got all red. He was really angry. And he said, you know, this is a noble profession and you're a member of it, and don't you ever apologize about it again. And I never did. And I don't apologize for being a Bob fan either. No. I mean, I hardly ever, I'll apologize if I've done somebody a great wrong. But I won't apologize for, you know, loving Bob Dylan.
No. Yeah, I mean, I never really apologize out loud. I just feel like I'm constantly almost being mocked, and I sort of shrug it off. I'm like, hey, shut up, shut up, shut up. Yeah, I still question what it is. I can't articulate all the reasons I love Bob Dylan, but I think if I can encapsulate it, there's something why I chose this song to be the first one. It's because of the mystery of it. And there are it's the mystery of not just his work, but him as a person, him as an artist. I think for me, he signifies as someone who finds it very challenging to create. I have a lot of fear around being creative.
Right.
I am a creative person, and I have had, you know, some of my writing published, etc. But it doesn't come easy. I have to get through a lot of blocks. And for me, he encapsulates what a true artist is, the fearlessness of it. For him to, in 1966, have these batch of songs he was playing that would go on to be from two of the most influential and, you know, critically acclaimed albums of all time, and be booed every night and still do it and say, you know, play it fucking loud.
Yeah. Well, never apologize. No, I mean, that's his rule.
Balls on Bob Dylan, you know, and I don't think there's any artist who doesn't truly care what people think. I think he does, but he does it anyway. He follows what he thinks is right, and I respect him for that. And the mystery of his songs, like this one, All Along the Watchtower, another sort of big one with biblical references. You could never fully say definitively what that song's about, and there's very few writers where that's the case in any genre, I think.
Yeah, and you know, another thing about Dylan is that he seemingly can see into the future. There's so many things in his songs when I'm listening to a song that I've heard 100 times, and I will think, oh my God, that's happening now. For instance, in Señor, that line about the trainload of fools bogged down in a magnetic field, to me, is exactly what's happening in American politics today. Yeah. It's a trainload of fools, and there's something about I just love that line because it's so mysterious, but that thing about a magnetic field, it's like you're trapped in this weird way, and you can't, magnetism is invisible, and he's got this thing in this song, again, just going back to the song, about, you know, the field, and also that vacant lot.
I think it's one of the most mysterious. You were talking about the sort of that suicidal element almost earlier, and there is a hopelessness. It's like a marching band still playing in a vacant lot. No one's hearing them. It's a vacant lot. They're playing for no one.
Yeah, and they're also isn't he also? She's holding him in her arms
one time and said, "Forget me not," but she has forgot me, the bitch. You know, it's that sort of, it's the bitter divorcee.
It is. You know, it doesn't sound that bitter. In a way, it doesn't. The bitterness is all kind of just bubbling under the surface. And as you said, this ain't a dream no more. It's the real thing. There's the whole thing about we must do a bonus episode about Bob Dylan and dreams, and the difference between reality and dreams.
Yeah. And a series of dreams.
And a series of dreams.
You could do a series of bonus episodes on a series of dreams. Sorry.
Exactly. And what do you make of disconnect these cables and overturn these tables?
I think it's about, for me, it's, well, another song on the album, Changing of the Guards. It's like a complete overhaul of his life. I feel, and I think this is because I'm an actor, actually, that I feel this. It gives me a sense of the narrator needing to find a personal responsibility behind that anger and that bitterness. It's like not knowing where the hell to start and seeking guidance from God or Señor, but the lack of answers showing him that it's kind of only no one's coming to save him. He's got to do it. And that rings true to me being an actor, because I feel still that it's totally impossible. There's no one coming to save me. but I have to follow it, and I have to keep going. And there's some, this is completely subjective, isn't it? But this is what this song.
Well, we all have our own inner Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Don't we?
Yeah.
I've had some major relationships in my life, and when they end, you've got to disconnect the cables. Like, it's both a term for musical recording, but it's also, there are these cables that connect you to the other person. And it's time to disconnect the cables. How do you do that? That cable is a very strong connection.
There's almost no well, in my opinion, maybe I'm biased as a Dylan fan, but there's almost no divorce in history that's had so much artistic impact as the divorce between Bob Dylan and Sarah Lowndes. In some ways, you get Blood on the Tracks, you get this, you get parts of the songs on Desire as well, although Sarah is one of my least favourite Bob Dylan songs.
Me too.
That's
I fucking hate that song too. It's so fake.
Yeah.
It's one of the few Dylan songs that to me sounds fake. I have no doubt that he loved her, but he was doing it in this way. It's like he lost his Bob Dylan-ness.
Yeah.
It wasn't mysterious at all.
No.
And I kept thinking, I know once or twice when my wife, who I rely on a lot of all the time to bounce stuff off, she's very strong. And so I'll say something and she'll tell me what she thinks one way or the other. But occasionally if she has a cold or something, or she's not feeling, things will kind of like pass through her, and I won't get this bounce back that I kind of need. And I got the feeling with Sarah, with Bob, sometimes he loses his strength. And I got the feeling with that song, Sarah, that he wasn't the strong Bob Dylan that we want. We need.
I think it's interesting you say about him losing his Bob Dylan-ness. I think that there are certain times in his career, I think that's why a lot of the stuff in the 80s is not as strong artistically, because he's suddenly trying to be something that he's not.
Yeah.
Because the 80s was such a shift musically and image-wise and fashion-wise, I think, especially in the music industry, and he tried to fit into that, and it just didn't work. Bob with bloody eyeliner at a press conference is like, Bob, what are you doing, man?
No, I know, absolutely. I think he lost confidence in himself. He was almost apologizing.
Yeah, and then when he, 97, when he goes, fuck it, I'm going to do me again, it's a whole new era of Bob Dylan's work, I think. Totally different, but just as strong in different ways for me. I just want to share this because we've spoken on the phone quite a lot, and I've said a couple of times, if you want to know the meaning behind songs or anything really about Bob Dylan, the last person you go to for a reliable source is Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And there's a show, I'm very into the live shows, so in 1978 on this tour, the Alimony tour, as we call it, it's one of the best bootlegs of that tour is in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's an amazing rendition of Señor. Just like he just absolutely bellows it out. But before he says the meaning of the song.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
He basically says it's about a conversation he had on a train from San Diego to Monterey. It was just past midnight, and an old man got on the train and took a seat across from Bob in the aisle. He was wearing nothing but a blanket, and both his eyes were on fire, and there was smoke coming out of his nostrils. And I just knew I had to talk to him. And this is the conversation we had.
Yeah, I know, I've heard that. And in fact, he says, a conversation went something like this. Which
yeah,
is a very kind of
like
showbiz way of sort of introducing this.
And this tour was quite showbiz. Apparently this tour, he'd been very, he'd seen Neil Diamond in concert, and the spectacle and the big band and stuff.
Huh.
Apparently he was truly moved by it. And it is the first big Dylan, trumpets and brass section and a backing section.
Yeah, and in fact, Street Legal didn't have any harmonica. I think it was it was his first album that had no harmonica.
I'd never realised that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons it sounds, so creepy in a way. There's something about Dylan pootling away on his harmonica that is very sort of humanizing and comforting. Yeah,
it's always funny. We'll talk about this a lot throughout the episodes, I'm sure. But I listen to endless bootlegs of live recordings, and it never stops throughout all the years of the Neverending Tour. The first time he plays the harmonica in a show, everyone goes ballistic. So it's like, oh, there we are, we're comfortable again.
I know. I found in A Complete Unknown. You know, that the final scene, pretty much the final scene with Woody Guthrie, where it's completely wordless, and he tries to give Woody's, because Woody has given him a harmonica early on, you know, in a complete fictional, I think, moment, and he tries to give his harmonica back to Woody, and Woody, you know, has trouble speaking, can't speak, and Woody pushes the harmonica back to Bob.
Yeah,
and I find that really moving.
Really moving, and he touches his hair, and it's like, thank you, but goodbye. I'm off to do some real shit.
And he gets on his motorcycle and drives into the future.
Yeah. I'm just going to get, and I will do this occasionally, get into a little bit of songwriter nerdery, because I write songs as well, not anywhere near as good as Bob Dylan, but he's famously not one very often for choruses, which is very hard to do in popular music. Sometimes he just does verses, like in Desolation Row, and then it ends with the title. But this one, in terms of structure, it goes A A B A B A A, which is weird. So it's got the Señor for 2 verses, Señor Señor, and then the next one Señor Señor, and then it's got there's a Wicked Wind, which is the B line. Then it's back to Señor, and then a B with the last thing I remembered, and then 2 more Señors. I mean, it's just a very odd structure. You would think that he'd go A, if he was going to do it like this, he'd go A A B A A B A A, but he doesn't. He has what it does, I think, those a B and an A and a B, is it just gives it this tension and this an urgency that it wouldn't otherwise have. And then ends with the 2 Señors. And anyway, that's me being a bit of a nerd.
I find there's something weird about the whole Street Legal album to me, aside from the fact that it sounds like it was recorded inside a wet cardboard box. It kind of makes, it's kind of a bit sickening to me, like the ambiance and the words. There's something, and I don't say that about any other Bob Dylan album. There's albums that I don't like, but even like the Jesus ones, which I don't like, they're kind of lively, angry, in your face. But there's something about the mood of this one that I just find sickening, may be the wrong word, but kind of sour, really sour.
Yeah, I love the album, but it was one, just from an engineering standpoint, it was terribly mixed and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But also, I just think it needed a stronger producer. I think there's decisions that just make it sound flat.
I know
when the song isn't flat.
No, even just where you put the mics.
Yeah,
they were put in the wrong place, and then Bob, they recorded it in a week or less than a week.
Yeah, it was super rushed.
And I read something recently that after he heard it, he fired the entire band.
Really?
Yeah. And then somebody said, Bob, it wasn't the band, plus you're about to go out on tour, and on Tuesday. So he hired them all again. That's the headspace that he was in.
Yeah.
Hey, just a quick message to say that if you're enjoying Bob Dylan Approximately, why not consider becoming a Bobsessive over at our Patreon page.
For just £5 a month, you'll get access to longer bonus episodes, early access to all episodes, and a whole range of exclusive membership benefits.
The link to our Patreon page is in the episode notes, wherever you're listening to this podcast.
We do hope you receive it well.
Depending on the way you feel that you live. Time passes slowly up here in the mountains. We sit beside bridges and walk beside fountains. Catch the wild fishes that float through the stream. Time passes slowly when you're lost in a dream. So I used to think that was the most beautiful opening to a song there was. But I'm going to go right in and tell you, I'm going to relate it to a very obscure film that I wonder if you've seen. It's very obscure. Straight Time, starring Dustin Hoffman.
No.
And Harry Dean Stanton.
No. Oh, wow.
Bob Dylan connection there. What happens in Straight Time, which he did after all his, he did it after, way after The Graduate, Midnight Cowboy,
Who
All the
directed
President's
it?
Men. This guy called Ulu Grossbard directed it, but he came in after Dustin Hoffman was basically kicked off the film as director. Like, it was going to be his directorial debut.
Okay.
They shot it, the first that he did one day of filming, he didn't get a single foot of useful footage.
Oh, shit.
And so basically the studio took it away from him because he was starring in it as well. And it's based on a wonderful book by Edward Bunker, who is this guy he'd done hard time in prison. He was in Reservoir Dogs, the guy with not the guy with the gravelly voice. He's got a pencil mustache. He looks like a con. Anyway, so there's this film called Straight Time, and in it, Dustin Hoffman comes out of jail. He's been in jail for like 6 or 7 years for armed robbery. And he looks up his old pal, Harry Dean Stanton, who was his cellmate. And he goes and he tracks him down to his place in the suburbs. And he's got a little house, a nice little house, and a little pool out back, and a wife and a couple kids. And they have a barbecue. And Harry Dean Stanton takes out his guitar and plays some blues. It's really worth, if you can find it. I don't even know if it's available on Amazon Prime or whatever. But it's a really good film. It's a very interesting film. And Dustin Hoffman, who plays this kind of weird, tough. He's really tough. You've never seen him so tough. Anyway, he says, "You've done well," he says to Harry Dean Stanton. They go into a corner for a cigarette. And he says, "Man, you did it. You did it. You pulled it off." And Harry Dean Stanton says, and this is a quote that I looked up, "Get me out of here. They're killing me. I can't make this scene anymore. Get me out of here." Now, I'm going to relate that to the wild fishes that float through the stream, which I always thought was a beautiful line. But then I thought, fishes don't float. They swim. Unless they're dead.
Unless they're dead.
Unless they're dead. And he's floating like the fishes. He's not acting. He's not moving. He's just drifting through these long, boring days up in the mountains where Dylan was living, up in the Catskill Mountains. And he's describing a place where time has slowed down so much that it's virtually stopped, and he's fading away. And so all these lyrics that I always loved as being about just true love with the sweetheart, the fine, good-looking sweetheart, sitting in the kitchen while the mama is cooking, I realize it's more like, no, he's staring out the window. He stares straight ahead. He says we stare straight ahead and try so hard to stay right. Like, I think they're trying to make the marriage work. Yeah. But it's blooming for a day, but time is passing slowly and everything is fading away. So it's really almost as scary as something on Street Legal.
Yeah. I mean, time passes slowly when you're lost in a dream. It's almost like, because you do get in New Morning a lot of sort of domestic Dylan, a lot of domestic bliss, but it's not really him. This is a man who, in Chronicles, you say there were big bright lights out there and they were looking only at me. This is a man with ambition, and he succeeded all those ambitions, but it doesn't leave you. And I did, because I always kind of thought I don't know. I sort of overlooked this song. I thought, is it positive? Is it not? Is it just idleness? But that line, "Try so hard to stay right, time passes slowly and fades away." It's kind of like, is it possible to do what Dylan's done, which is try and find true happiness by just escaping the world's pressure and the world's challenges? Well, of course it's not. It's, as Dylan goes on to learn, the world follows him, and it's not possible. It's good for a time, but it can't last. I think, he found familial and domestic bliss for a little while, and he's Bob Dylan. He's got to move. It's boring.
Yeah.
And he's been moving ever since, really. Yeah. He doesn't stop.
I mean, speaking of Chronicles, I looked back on it recently, and I'll just read a bit from it. He says, "This play always came to town during the Christmas season with professional actors in the leading roles, cages of pigeons, a donkey, a camel, and a truck full of props." Remember, this is Bob Dylan.
Yeah, this is like the carnival story all over again.
Exactly. There were always parts that called for extras. One year, presumably if this ever happened, he was a kid. One year, I played a Roman soldier with a spear and helmet.
Of course it didn't happen.
Okay, but absolutely.
It did.
Breastplate, the works. A non-speaking role, but it didn't matter. I felt like a star. I liked the costume. I love this line. It felt like a nerve tonic.
A nerve tonic.
A nerve tonic.
Wow.
As a Roman soldier, I felt like a part of everything, in the center of the planet, invincible. That's interesting considering we were talking about him losing his nerve, right?
Yeah.
That seemed like 1,000,000 years ago now, he writes. 1,000,000 private struggles and difficulties ago. So he goes on to say, and he's gone back to 1970, he's gone back to the writing of New Morning. He's talking about when he was working on a couple of songs for Archibald MacLeish, who asked him to write songs for his play, called Scratch. So he's putting himself back into 1970. So he says, and this is the part we're finally at. I wasn't feeling so invincible at the moment, defiant maybe, anything but content, surrounded on all sides. As far as I could see, nothing was visible. I love that line.
Yeah.
As far as I could see, nothing was visible. Nothing but my own kitchen. And he's back in the kitchen, which he mentions in the song.
As far as I could see.
Nothing but the hot dogs with English muffins and noodles. Again, hot dogs with English muffins and noodles. The Cheerios and cornflakes with heavy cream, stirring flour into a large bowl for corn pudding, and beating eggs, changing diapers, making bottles. He doesn't like that.
No.
Somehow, between all that and maneuvering unmolested through the neighborhood and taking the dog for a walk, I'd gone to the piano, composed a few things for the play, that's Scratch, bearing in mind the titles that were given to me. That song, Time Passes Slowly, was one of the titles that was given to him by Archibald MacLeish. The play itself was conveying some devastating truth, but I was going to stay far away from that. Truth was the last thing on my mind. And even if there was such a thing, I didn't want it in my house. Oedipus went looking for the truth, and when he found it, it ruined him.
Fucking hell. I've forgotten how good Chronicles is.
It's so good. I mean, you can delve into Chronicles like a song.
God. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's just a page.
Yeah.
And it's full of shit. And I was, I just happened to be flipping through it, and I found that the thing about the truth I found really interesting about, no, I don't want the truth. Don't you even mention the truth in my house.
Yeah.
I'm going to be lost in a dream.
Well,
that's the way
as
to
we were
get through
saying
life.
earlier, his relationship to the truth in terms of talking to the media and talking to fans and all that stuff is baffling. He creates these wild stories and always has, even before he was famous by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
It's what I love musically about this song, I get into a bit nerdy about music stuff, but
Don't apologize,
boy. But it's almost like the lyrics on the surface of it are this sort of bliss. It could be, sort of Zen monk-like, sort of time passes slowly when you're lost in a dream.
I thought it was kind of like a meditative state.
Yeah, yes. Perfectly content. I've got the way, all that. But the music, the piano is brilliant. It starts in E flat, so immediately it starts kind of off kilter. You feel like, what's this? What's coming on? And then goes into a sort of a normal sort of DCG where you think, oh, I know what this song is. Oh wait, the piano's changing. I don't. It's almost like the music is the narrator's subconscious in a way. Telling him that this isn't all right. Yeah. I'm trying to convince myself that this is great, but actually, this isn't me. Bob was born a rambling man. Sorry to rip off the Allman Brothers, but he was born a rambling man,
No, absolutely. Do you know, version 2? It's called version 2 on Another Self-Portrait.
Yes, yeah. Now, there's many versions of this song.
And apparently he couldn't make up his mind. I read something when he was talking to Al Cooper, who actually produced the album, although he's just given a kind of a credit, but not producer. And he kept saying that Dylan kept changing his mind about, you can hear on Self-Portrait and on this album, on New Morning. But anyway, the version number 2 is very loud. The drums are pounding. The organ is blasting. And I get the feeling he's trying to blast himself, out of Woodstock. And if you listen to it, right at the end, when he says, time passes slowly when you're lost in a dream, and it really reminds me of 1965, of how does it feel? Yeah. Like he hits that kind of weird thing, that weird part of his voice when he goes, how does he, where he's sort of, he's on the verge, it's almost like primal therapy. It's almost like he's screaming.
Yeah.
And this is the song that I thought was this ode to domesticity. And it's not.
No,
I mean,
it's not at all.
It's not. And as you say, I think probably in a lot of his songs, when you think about it, the music is the antithesis.
Well, this is what is so mysterious about him, I think, as a musician, is he's a really not a technically good player of any instrument, really. I'm sorry, Bob. You're great. I love you. But his guitar playing as a guitar player is really hard to listen to sometimes. And he's, I like his piano stuff, but I think they call it flat fingers, where it's kind of like that. But his understanding of music and how to tell a story with it is completely unparalleled, in my opinion. So despite not being this technical player, he understands music. And the fact that he can change his songs into so many different versions and change the meanings of them with just the change in the music is what makes him so great, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This also reminded me, going back to the floating fish, because this song was always a comfort to me until I sat down and listened to it half a dozen times in a row for this podcast. And that's when I spotted the floating fish. And everything came from that. It's one of those things that you can only do with Bob Dylan. Like, you listen to something, I've heard this song, I don't know, 1,000 times maybe. And one day it broke open for me. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm right or anything. It's just like I saw it. I went through the mirror and saw it in a completely different way. And it reminded me on one of our, it was, I think, our pilot episode, which we'll release as a bonus episode at some point, we covered floater.
Yes.
Floating fish, floater. Do you remember what we discovered about that? Which is that, again, it seems to be quite a lovely little song and a lovely tune. The
whimsical tune.
Yeah, it's particularly lovely. But when you dig deep into it, he is in a very similar state.
Yeah.
He's floating around.
Yeah.
And
life's passing him by.
That's right. There's nothing to it. And the final line of that is, sometimes somebody wants you to give something up, and tears are not. It's too much to ask.
Yeah.
And that hit me, and I thought, oh my God, is he hearkening back to the divorce? Just that Bob was asked to give something up, give up his old life. And he agreed to it. Yeah. And then there were tears. And then he realized it was too much.
We talked about Señor in the first part of the episode, and that album, there's another song on it around the time of the divorce that's Is Your Love in Vain? And he talks about that, will you just it's the discomfort of the domesticity and being in a relationship, which I can totally relate to. It's that, like, when I am in the darkness, why do you intrude? Will you let me be myself, or is your love in vain? And I don't know, Bob, but it doesn't seem he's built for relationships.
No, I sometimes wonder. No, I don't think so. I think he's built for the darkness, really. Like, for instance, I think there's references to it in Time Passes Slowly. Time passes slowly up here in the daylight. Like, if you compare that to Visions of Johanna, ain't it just like the night? The all-night girls. I mean, it all takes place at night, where he's kind of comfortable. And instead of having to stare straight ahead and try so hard to stay right, he likes to live dangerously, and it just doesn't work for him being in the light.
No, there's just what you were saying about constantly having a song you thought you knew what it was about, and then you actually listened to it. You pointed out something to me when near where we first met, which was in "I'll Be Your Baby Tonight," which seems this lovely line. There's like, you don't have to be afraid. I'll be your baby. Is she usually afraid?
Exactly.
I never thought of that.
Exactly.
Why does he say you don't have to be afraid?
Exactly. I mean, even Nashville Skyline is probably the purest album for love songs. There are seemingly very pure love songs, but even God, To Be Alone With You, which I always considered and is on Nashville Skyline, to me, the purest of love songs. In the future, he just takes it apart and changes all the lyrics and throw my ticket in the wind.
Yeah, and it's weird because that's I actually now don't know the original lyrics of Tonight I'll Be, because I've listened to the Rolling Thunder live version. I love it so much that's the one I think of.
Yeah, well, I've always, To Be Alone With You, I've always cited as actually my favorite Dylan song, just because I actually, have a relationship that works, and that's sort of about a working relationship. But it only lasted in that version for that album, and then he's been taking it apart ever since.
Yeah.
Speaking of taking apart, this is just going back to Señor, because I think we're getting close to being out of time. This ain't a dream no more. It's the real thing. It can relate to, time passes slowly when you're lost in a dream. And he dreamed that dream of the wife and the kids and the house in the mountains, and have a bunch of kids who call me Pa.
Yeah.
That must be what it's all about.
Not all what it seems or what it's cracked up to be. Yeah. No. I just wanted to, as I was doing some research on this, I found a quote from a guy called Tony Atwood at bobdylan.org.uk that I thought was brilliant about this song.
Okay.
But the final verse does it again, changing the chord structure that the piano plays to hold it all together, and we get our clear indication. Time passes slowly up here in the mountains, but watch out, because it's not quite as simple and calm and rustic as you might think. This is a world you never expected. It is like the city dweller coming to the log cabin in the woods and sitting outside thinking, oh, how magnificent all this simplicity is, and then being bitten by a snake, finding that there are ants crawling over his bedclothes, that he has to go and get water from the stream, and he's got no way to start a fire. It reminded me weirdly of, I spent last summer, quite a long part of last summer, at this place in rural Somerset, and it was very, very in the middle of absolute nowhere. And you think of sort of the countryside as being this really, you think of nature as this serene, quiet, calm thing. I'd never spent so much time in nature, and I realised nature's fucking noisy. I'd never had worse sleep than when I was in the middle of nowhere. Nature is loud and dangerous, and there's things coming to bite you, and I was bitten by mosquitoes constantly. And I just really liked that quite. It's like, it's not all what it seems, not always cracked up to be.
No, it reminds me of my favorite Woody Allen line when they say, you can use our cabin out out in the mountains, and he goes, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm at two with nature.
I'm at two with nature. I think that's a good note.
That was Bob Dylan Approximately, with Kerry Shale
and Daniel Crespin. Produced by Robin Guise.
And recorded at Lipsync Post, Soho, London.
For longer bonus episodes, join our Patreon feed.
And if you have a Bobsessive friend, please spread the word.
It ain't quite the end.
We'll just bid farewell till we meet again.